Last week my show and tell session was actually really fun and a good way to travel down memory lane. I realized that I have some work to do in terms of camera angles. If you're truly interested in delving into the collector's mentality, you can search up on Google people who buy coins by weight, large buckets full, and just sort through them. I had a similar experience, although admittedly the number of coins I have is obviously very few compared to them. Coins are also low value, so you're really doing this as a fun adventure rather than as some sort of investment tactic. I think that coins and currency are art pieces to me, and I treat them as such. They're practical art pieces, so I think that they're one of the best things to collect on travels because you'll always be interacting with currency in some form or another, and you'll always know where that souvenir is from, or you have an easy way of checking on Google. I've been organizing all of my travel artifacts. As I might have mentioned last week, I sometimes have difficulty IDing where the artifact came from. That's obviously an indictment on me and my system. For example, with my sand collection, I thought I had a system to ID sand bottles, but I obviously have to work on it because whatever code system I came up with, I'm now having to try to decipher what I meant. So there are some bottles that were clearly labeled from where they were, and then there were some bottles, for some reason, I had taken a video to explain where they were from, and I'm now trying to find those videos. That's another thing to consider, is that I have to curate all of my video content. My video content alone, I have several types of cameras, including VR and 360, which I think I will hope to upload one or two clips from a special country or two, but those clips take a lot of space, a lot of time to process, so that's still in the long shoot of travel related projects to keep me busy. Yes, coins are difficult to film, but I thought maybe I would try some bills. That might work better. Because I really want to figure out how to film in detail. Maybe the type of camera I have is a problem, or maybe the camera setup, but since we're all on this together in a way, we're all having to test our creativity, which I always find fun in and of itself, but this has been an interesting one for the ages. Okay. Will this show up properly? This is a 50 kwacha bill from Malawi, and the light actually shines right through it, so you can see the reverse from the front. The reverse is actually an elephant on safari, but it's showing through the light. As I said, I'll have to figure out how to do this properly, but I just wanted to pick a couple of quick ones to show, because I realized many of the coins that I did last week came out poorly. also commented as if African countries are the only ones that have animals on their currency. Many countries actually have animals on their currency, Canada being one of them, Australia. But for some reason, what I meant to say was safari animals. But even that, I have to be clearer about what I mean. You can have a safari in many different places. Actually, I think in the travel industry, they've started to adopt the word safari for many different things. So you can have a polar bear safari. You can have a kangaroo safari. Suffice to say, that's what I'm going to call them from now on. So what I meant was African countries have African animals on their currency. So, here's some currency from my most recent country. I'll admit that currencies with people on them I connect to a lot less because I hate people and I'm a misanthrope. Okay, so what else do I want to say? I think that organizing travel artifacts is a good way to travel while staying put. My decision to live life to the fullest seems to have been a good win for me because the world is continuing to teeter-totter on some sort of precipice. Pandemic is one thing, but I think people are starting to challenge the fundamental moorings on which society is built. I've been saying that. It should have been for a long time. And my argument is rational people would come to the conclusion, man, this game is stacked against me. And it's just the way it is. The only compassionate action, I think, is to stop the game, not have kids. Now, of course, it's easy for me to say, I've mentioned it several times, I'm obviously maladaptive. Search the word maladaptive in the dictionary, and you'll have a very technical, precise definition of what adaptation is. Am I going to enter into this type of scientific argument today? No, I don't want to. Not today. Because I think it suffices. Anyone who's been following my vlogs knows that I'll maybe go at most a handful of vlogs before I mention my point of view on the world. My point of view called antinatalism. I think I'm good, but it's hard because people ask me how I've seemingly won this pandemic. And the only way that I can explain it is to delve into my entire value system. But that takes a long time, and some days I'm more engaged than others in doing such a thing. Some days I just want to dance. Some days I just want to talk. Some days I want to do grade 1 share and tell. Maybe suffice to say, how to win in the pandemic is to use the time wisely. Yes, you might be limited in the number of activities that you can do depending on where you live. I'm actually relatively lucky in BC. We have relatively few restrictions, but proper pandemic restrictions are one thing. Price can be a restriction too. I've mentioned several times that the activities that I'd like to engage in, like scuba diving, are just fucking expensive right now because basically consumers are having to stuff the extra costs of lower capacity, increased sanitation, blah, de blah, de blah. And to be completely honest, that's going to price some people out of the market indefinitely. I'm hoping that something happens, that things will become affordable again, but it's a hard thing to say. It's very hard. I'm also comparing to what I call the golden age of travel, which I just came out of. Pretty much 2013, even before then, when our currency, the Canadian dollar, was almost at par with the US, and even into when it started to decrease again. That was when travel was the cheapest from a currency standpoint, from a deal standpoint. That's when capacity was at its max, when restrictions were at their lowest. You had basically free reign as a Canadian to travel visa-free to probably 150 or so countries. You had one of the most powerful passports in the world from that standpoint. Now you're looking at a landscape where even if you start traveling again, you're in a different world, really. And each person's going to have to make a decision as to what they want to do. In many ways, I'm in a fortunate position because I've seen almost everything that a person could want to see. Now, of course, I had my goal to travel to 193 UN countries, but making it to 100 is rare as it is already. So if I had to stop, I can. I've said that already. But I can understand where some people I know had the delay approach. They had the delay happiness approach or outsource happiness approach where I ain't gonna be happy now. I'm hoping I'll be happy later. I'm gonna delay it so that I can maybe finagle pieces so that I'm in a better situation to be happier later. Or they have many, many excuses where they could have actually done it now, but they just were too fearful. Mostly they're too fearful. Now, a couple of people that I know feel like they've missed their opportunity. And we cannot go back to the pre-pandemic world or the pre-social justice world or whatever the hell kind of world that they're looking at. Then I have nothing that I can say because I'm struggling similarly. It's just that I've time on my hand. I have time on my side because I'm not in panic or regret. I think panic, regret, those are two very strong drivers of negative emotions that can send people into tailspins. So I don't know what to say because the answer that I have, of course, looks very oracle-like in hindsight, but that was because I knew in the back of my mind that this is the deus ex, this is the force majeure that you are, in some ways, mitigating against, okay? So when you have 80% of the situation conducive to doing what you do, are you going to wait for the 20% to be perfect, or are you going to go? And that was the situation I was in. First, I had to recognize that actually I was in that 80% situation. Like 80% of things are actually in my favor to travel. I just had to recognize that. And then, ever since I did recognize it in 2013, it's been fucking rocket to the moon. Which is another thing I actually want to do. Actually take a rocket to outer space. So it's one of these things where it's less about regret for me. So I have very little that I can say about that, especially if you're in the opposite situation. Suffice to say that I saw it, and I know that it was going to happen. It was just a matter of when or what. So then I basically put Doomsday Clock as one big game that I was playing against. Okay. Maybe I'll dance. Okay, I will dance a little bit less today. Today's a practice session anyways. I just want to wrap up the thought, the Doomsday Clock thought. I've mentioned to people that I do play a game with myself that's very similar to a game that Steve Jobs played, except he would ask himself almost daily, what would you do today if today was your last day and you were about to die? For some people, that can be a motivating mindset. For others, they've yet to reconcile their relationship with death, so that could be something that causes huge amounts of anxiety for them. For me, I've modified that game to be optimally motivating for me. So, what I say is, I play what I call a 6-month game. A 6-month game allows me to have enough time to do some responsible planning, but not too much that I become analysis by paralysis. Okay? So it's a good mix of motivating you to do things that are enriching and personal to you, but without being completely without a long-termish plan. So let's say 6 months, right? I basically ask myself, what do I want to do in the next 6 months? Otherwise, these activities fall away. So if you miss out on doing them within the 6-month window, they fall away mentally. Now, obviously, I always have the escape route, the escape hatch, where I myself am the one who arbitrarily made them fall away, so I'm always the one who can make them come back. But I've mostly treated it as a soft death, if you will. I really say that things do fall away. So with this mentality, I've optimized my time to do things that I want to do. And it's worked pretty well in the last 7 years. Now, given that we have restrictions in many different forms, I've just optimized my time to things that have always taken lower priority when I had better things to do, but are looking like really fun activities right now. For example, sorting through change, sorting through currency. That was actually a lot more fun than I anticipated. It was hard work. I actually had to do a lot of research, especially for our Canadian coins. We have what I think is one of the best mints in the world in terms of creativity. We have many new designs that are in circulation, so you can actually complete many sets just by taking out coins when you're circulating and paying, and that's what I've been doing. So I've completed many sets that way. I've even almost completed the American set of state coins, where they have special state designs. So it's just a fun thing to do. I've never actually taken the time to sort things out, even though I've been collecting these coins, collecting loosely, since the millennium, since 99. Oh, it's just about that. It's just finding fun ways to keep yourself occupied. And I'm 100% certain if you use the right mentality about it, you will find something at home that will be fun to do. And you'll probably find something that can keep you going indefinitely, however that means. Speaking of which, I will now engage myself in the activity that I think has been the number one. The one that I found the love of my pandemic life, dancing.